everybody. Thank you for joining us to the Wayne Public Library Jazz Program Series. This is in conjunction with the William Patterson University Jazz Room collaboration, and I'm happy to report that this is our 8th program that we've been able to coordinate, and I'm excited, very excited to announce that we have the very famous jazz bassist Christian McBride joining us tonight. I have a little brief introduction I'd like to make, and then we can get started. Christian McBride is a 7-time Grammy Award-winning bassist, composer, and band leader. He is the artistic director of the historic Newport Jazz Festival, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, and the T.D. James Moody Jazz Festival, and the National Jazz Museum in Harlem. Christian is also a respected educator and an advocate as the artistic director of Jazz House Kids and the Jazz Aspen Snowmass Summer Sessions. In addition to consistent touring, McBride hosts NPR's Jazz Night in America and The Lowdown, Conversations with Christian on Sirius XM. Whether behind the bass or away from it, Christian McBride is always the face of the music, is always of the music. From jazz to R&B, pop rock, hip hop, neo-soul, to classical, he is a luminary with one hand ever reaching for new heights and the other extended in fellowship, and perhaps the hint of a challenge inviting us to join him. And I will take you up on that challenge and join you. So welcome, Christian.
Thank you for having me.
I want to say that there's a few things that are missing from that bio. You are also the artistic director of the Montclair Jazz Festival, which is coming up, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later.
That's right.
Also the creative chair for jazz programming at the LA Philharmonic Association for 5 years. And you're also DJ Brother Mister.
That's correct.
Okay, so I have to know how you managed to accomplish all that you have at your very young age. I am convinced that you've been cloned, and that's the only way that you're able to do everything that you have been able to, because you have the many hats of being not only as a musician, you're a composer, an arranger, a band leader, an educator, and the list goes on. I don't know how you do it, and I'm just so excited to be speaking with you tonight.
Well, thank you very much. I'm just a bass player for hire. That's what I came into this business to be, and it's led me to all of these other things because I'm deeply interested in all facets of music and culture.
I found an interesting quote from you that if it starts to get too overwhelming with everything that you've committed yourself to, you'll just stop. But something tells me that you will never stop and that you're always going to be continuing to just pursue all new endeavors here.
Well, when I said that quote, I meant specifically in terms of, juggling all of these different eggs. I will never stop playing, God willing, something doesn't happen, but I intend on playing the bass until my last day. That's what got me into the music, and that I'm always going to stick with the girl that brought me to the dance.
In going through everything that you've done, I realize we have probably enough content to fill up probably a good 12-hour mini-series if we wanted to continue this. However, tonight we have an hour. And so some of the things I'd like to focus on are your beginnings, your influences, and then also talk about you being an educator, which I think is a big part of local, the Jazz House Kids that you have in Montclair, and also your work at William Patterson as the distinguished artist in residence. And then I also would really like to focus a lot about your composition, because in a lot of the interviews and a lot of the articles I've read, it's something that I don't think as many people realize that you do. And there's also something coming up later this November that I wanted to highlight as well. So I understand that your beginnings started very young. I was fortunate to interview Pete McGinnis yesterday, who sends his regards, by the way. And both
Tell
of
my
you
friend
started,
hello.
He'll be watching this, so both of you had started your careers really when you were in middle school, which I find amazing. And I had noted that you were able to go to the Atlantic Jazz Festival and you were sparked by seeing your father, Lee Smith, perform there, and you decided that that was when you wanted your electric bass, and you were able to get that.
That is absolutely correct. And the minute I touched it, I fell in love with it, and I knew that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Are there any other instruments that you had wanted to play possibly before 9 years of age or after 9 years of age?
Well, not before 9 years of age, but when I got to middle school at age 11, and I now had to play an instrument in the school orchestra, my first choice was the trombone because obviously you can't play the electric bass in an orchestra. So I picked the trombone, and I wasn't very good at all. And so the brass instructor suggested that maybe I might want to try the double bass since I played the electric bass guitar. And I reluctantly went to the double bass room because I didn't see the logic in playing two basses, playing a bass guitar and also playing the double bass. But that's the best suggestion anyone's ever made for me in my entire life.
It's interesting. I guess you just kind of know it when you feel it, and
Yeah.
you find your creative outlets, whether it's going to be music or writing or dancing or whatnot. When it clicks, and you are very fortunate to find yours at a very young age. Now, I'm curious though, is it because your father is a jazz bassist, does that also have an influence on you?
That was the number one influence. Watching my father play and hearing all of that great music that he was playing with the late great Cuban percussionist Mongo Santa Maria. Um, Between that, my mother and my uncle's extensive record collection, that's what got me into the music.
Now, other influences that I see that you have are James Brown, and of course Ray Brown. So let's talk first about James Brown.
Well, who hasn't been influenced by James Brown since the mid '60s? I mean, the man's a world icon. I don't think my uh, influence of his is any different than any other musician who's heard his music since the '60s. But I just decided to go a little deeper because uh, once I saw him perform live for the first time, he came to Philadelphia quite a bit when I was a kid. So I saw him numerous times throughout my adolescence and just all through the '80s. And I don't know, I really felt a certain always felt a certain strength when I heard James Brown's music. It got you up. It made you feel it. Well, at least it made me feel um, almost like I had a force field around me. Like nothing could bother me. Nothing could penetrate this force field. Like it really just gave me. If James Brown's music felt like it was giving me superpowers.
Well, there's a good reason to pursue it. And I believe that you actually played with him before he passed, correct?
A couple of times, yes. I played with him in 1997 at his 64th birthday bash in Augusta, Georgia, and I produced what was his last performance in Los Angeles. Not his last performance ever, but his last performance in Los Angeles. That was in September of 2006.
That must have been a real thrill for you.
Biggest thrill ever. I'm not sure anything will top that.
Now, I have also noted, of course, Ray Brown was a huge influence on you. I have always been partial to piano trios and predominantly Oscar Peterson and Monty Alexander, with whom Ray Brown played with both of them. And so he just is an incredible bassist, and I connect with him in many different ways. And I just wanted to know what other things he was able to share with you. I know that one piece of advice he gave to you is to always listen to the vocalist.
Yes, that's correct. Well, hearing Ray Brown on records was always very informative, very inspiring. But the first time I saw him perform live, kind of like with James Brown, like experiencing a musician that you admire live, that just brings another dimension and it opens up other vistas that just listening to it on a recording or watching it on YouTube just can't do. You know, when you see that person live and feel that energy, it just magnifies everything by 100. So the first time I saw Ray Brown perform live, um, it really was sort of this eureka moment, as in, okay, so that's how the bass is supposed to be played. I get it now. And I was fortunate that Ray liked the way I played, and he took me under his wing. He created a group called Super Bass for myself and John Clayton, another just legendary, fantastic bassist, composer, arranger. Um, and we played in Super Bass from 1992 until Ray's death in 2002.
So that featured three acoustic basses.
Yep.
Were there other instruments involved in that?
On occasion, we might have a drummer sit in, but generally it was just three unaccompanied basses.
Wow, I can't even imagine what that would have been like to in an audience, much less playing.
Right. Well, I remember our first performance, which was in Pittsburgh in December of '92. Um, Again, hearing Ray Brown on recordings is one thing. Watching him perform live was another thing. But when I finally got to stand next to him and have to play on top of him, oh man, that was quite overwhelming.
I was seeing in one of the interviews that basically a lot of musicians obviously were drawn to Ray Brown, and just the fact that anyone he played with, even if it wasn't his own group, he was kind of the de facto leader because of his force of personality.
Right.
Now,
Yes.
do you want to imitate that too? Because I do think you also have a force of personality, and you really have a chemistry to draw people near you.
Yeah, but I'm not interested in being the boss most of the time. I like to I like to keep things simple. I do realize there are times when uh, a little more direction might be needed if things might be kind of scattered. But if I'm not called to be the leader, I let people do their job. But probably my favorite story of Ray Brown sort of taking control of a situation where I felt it was needed. We did this concert at Carnegie Hall. It was the Verve Records 50th anniversary concert, 1994, and everyone you could possibly imagine was on this concert. Betty Carter, Abby Lincoln, Dee Dee Bridgewater, Herbie Hancock, John Lewis. I'm sorry, not John Lewis. Hank Jones, Kenny Burrell, J.J. Johnson, Joe Henderson, Jackie McLean, Roy Hargrove, Al Foster, Kenny Washington, Jimmy Smith, Antonio Carlos Jobim, Pat Metheny. I mean, it was packed to the gills. Um, as is usually the case, they always want to have an all-star jam session at the end of the night when they put these big all-star packages together, and they almost never work, you know, because there's too many people to try to put together something cohesive. You know, jam sessions need a lot more structure than you need, for a television show, which this was. And so they had all of these people on stage, and they had a double rhythm section, Ray and myself on bass, Hank Jones and Herbie Hancock playing piano. Kenny Washington was playing drums. And as we're about to rehearse the finale, uh, Ray is looking quite perturbed. This is before we even start rehearsing. And I said, Ray, what's the matter? And he leans over and he says, you see all these people on stage? I said, yeah. He said, I bet you any amount of money we're not going to get a bass solo, right? So the thought never even crossed my mind. I kind of didn't want a bass solo seeing all of those people on stage, because by the time it got to the bass solo, because the bass always goes last when it's time for a solo, and by that time, you just don't feel like playing a solo. And so Ray said, yeah, watch, we're not going to get a solo. So we start rehearsing, and sure enough, no bass solo. And you could see steam coming out of Ray's ears and nose, right? And after we finished, Ray goes to the producer of the show and he says, hey, I need to see you backstage. Christian, you come with me. So, I could just feel what's going to happen. And he looked the producer in the face and he said, here's what's going to happen for this finale tonight. And the producer says, no, Ray, you can't change anything. No, it's too late. We got the camera blocks, we got the lights worked out. And Ray just did like a mob boss. He just raised his hand and went, I said, this is what's going to happen for the finale tonight. And like the producer smartly stood down and he says, Christian and I are going to play 4 courses of a solo out front. Then all of that stuff you just rehearsed can happen. But McBride and I are going to start this out. And that's exactly what happened on that concert. And, it's on YouTube. So you can. Now, what I find hilarious, somebody found that video and they mistakenly, they wrongly tagged it Ray Brown and Friends. But kind of the way Ray Brown took that show over that night, it kind of was Ray Brown and Friends.
That is so funny. I'm just wondering where was somebody wanting to do what Duke Ellington did with Jimmy Blanton? They should have just put you and Ray Brown right out front, just like Duke Ellington did, right? And then you can be in the solo seat there.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what happened. We didn't have a piano. It was just the 2 of us. But yeah, Ray got that in for us.
Now you have been known to have said that the role of the bass is one of the hardest in an orchestra because it's the dual role it has to play both harmony and rhythm.
Yes.
Is there any other instrument that poses that issue? Maybe piano?
Well, it's optional for a piano. It's not a requirement. It's an option. But for a bass player, it's a requirement. You're required to play rhythm, much like a drummer, and you are required to anchor the harmony like a pianist. So both the drums and the piano must come through the bass in our note choices. And no other instrument has that responsibility unless they want to try to take that on. It's not a requirement, it's an option. But for me, it's a requirement.
So it really does make you the leader and the boss of the band, I think, even if no one else will acknowledge or say that. But I think you are, and I will say it. So there you go.
Well, there's this great saying that if the entire band plays a C major chord, but the bass player plays an A natural, it's an A minor chord. It's not a C major chord anymore. So yes, we are the rulers of the harmony.
I bow down to you. So I'm going to do something a little bit unconventional here. Instead of going chronologically, I want to talk about the different size groups that you have performed with, starting with as in a duo setting. And it kind of leads me back to with what I said about Ray Brown saying, always listen to the vocalist. You had performed as a duo with Diane Reeves. And I found this wonderful, wonderful interview with you and your wife, Melissa Walker, with Michael Bourne in 2017, I believe. And you backed her up as she sang. And I got to tell you, it's not only a wonderful interview, but the songs that you played are really fantastic. And I just want to list them here because I very much enjoyed them. You played Just in Time, which is one of my favorite songs. I like Tony Bennett's version. I love Monty Alexander's version, but I like your version there too. Is wonderful.
Well, thank
Then
you.
you take another Just song and you do just one of those things and you do it at a really fast tempo. And it was so wonderful to hear that. And then a wonderful, I got to stop saying wonderful. I need to get my thesaurus out here. A fantastic version of Mr. Bojangles. And I love this composition. And this is something that I've never heard before. And as your wife was talking about it, it's unlike any other version that I grew up with during the 70s when it was on, PAT, radio and such.
Right,
Now,
right.
was that a composition that you did, or was that written by somebody else or arranged by somebody else?
No, I arranged that for Melissa. Um, I was always surprised that I mean I'm always up for a challenge, but when she told me that she wanted an arrangement of yeah, I arranged it for the big band. Um, I was more than up for the challenge because, as you said, that's not a song you hear every day, especially sung by a jazz vocalist.
It was really great, and I like that. And the perfect part is you guys wrapped everything up and gave your outro, so to speak, and you wrapped it up with a perfect song. That's all. And I just love that. It fit perfectly, and it was a beautiful rendition of it. So I wonder, will you two ever perform live together? And
Oh,
has been a
absolutely.
while.
Oh yeah, the next time my anytime my big band performs, Melissa is she's our vocalist. So the next time you see the big band, you will see Melissa and you will hear Melissa.
But as a duo, I tell you, there's a really nice intimacy between just with you as bass backing her up as vocalist. There's something very special. And it's not often that I've heard of a duo with a bass and a vocalist. And you did it also with Diane Reeves.
I've done that with quite a number of vocalists. You know, a lot of vocalists like doing duets with bass players. I've been fortunate that I've been able to work with almost you know, every vocalist I've ever dreamed of working with. You know, all of the ladies that I mentioned who were on that Verve concert, like the late great Betty Carter, the late great Abby Lincoln, Dee Dee Bridgewater's a dear friend, Diane Reeves, uh, Cassandra Wilson, Nina Freelon, um, uh, younger singers like Cyril Ame and Jasmine O'Horn, Gregory Porter, Jose James. They all like bass duets, you know, and that is a very fun and intimate thing to do, particularly if you have a vocalist and a bassist that really know the song well enough that they can get deep inside the harmony and they can take chances and they can really make things happen.
I it's found a wonderful quote from Diane Reeves, which I think she's one, and possibly others have said it, that jazz is a living art form. And this is what I love about live music and jazz in particular, which is my what I'm partial to. But the fact that it is living, and you can do it as a duo or a trio or a quartet or a big band or any or a solo artist as well. Was this very hard for you during the pandemic to kind of continue and have these connections when we're living in a virtual world?
I got to tell you, I had a little bit of COVID guilt in that uh, I would say for a good 30 straight years, I spent most of my life on the road. About a good, you know, 35 to 40 weeks out of the year at various points. And so I was tired. I didn't want, I wish, the so-called sabbatical, I wish the circumstances were obviously a lot different because it was devastating why we were all on sabbatical. But I got to tell you, I just stayed in the house and slept for about a good 4 or 5 months straight, and I enjoyed every moment. I'm still enjoying every moment of just sort of regrouping, reassessing life. Um, uh, I got my bases here. I played in the house all day. It was like I was when I was in high school, just playing along with the records. You practice hard, and I know that sooner or I've played a few shows here and there. I mean, I haven't been 100% isolated, but in terms of like hitting the road for those long stretches like I used to, that's probably not going to happen again, at least until next year. So that was a long way of saying I was totally fine with not playing with anyone for a while.
You shouldn't have any guilt about that. You have a well-deserved rest there, and I truly your schedule. I don't know how you do it, and so you definitely earned that rest. And
Oh, thank you.
now you have a trio, and I noted that Christian Sands is a pianist, another Christian, and Jerome Jennings is your drummer. Now, if I had been blindfolded and had never heard it before, and it was put on. I, of course, loving my piano trios, would have probably listened to it and thought, boy, that must be Ray Brown there. And that pianist is fantastic. And the one I was listening to right before is your version of Tangerine. And what I love about that is it's a beautiful 4/4. And at the very end, goes into a 3/4 and then back to 4/4. And that's the kind of stuff about jazz that I get excited. I'm not a musician. I love music. I'm the daughter of a jazz trombonist, and I grew up on all the music that you also did, the swing and the bebop. I'm very frustrated that I can't perform, but I really love the version of Tangerine and
Thank you.
the chemistry that you guys have. And this is also what I love about a trio or any a quartet or any size group is that chemistry, that communication that all the musicians have. It's so evident when you watch it, but it's also evident when you hear it. And I was just wondering if there's any different communication that you have in a smaller group versus, say, your big band.
Well, chemistry is less. I'm not sure like instant chemistry is needed for the big band as quickly as it is for a small group because you're reading music in a big band. You can't quite read and react to each other in a big band as you do with a smaller group. But obviously, in a big band, um, for me, the most important person is the drummer. Any band I've ever had, um, if there is a drummer, because I've had some bands without drummers, but if there is a drummer, that's always the first person I have to pick because in terms of carrying the rhythm, uh, that has to be my closest relationship. You know, in fact, had you been at my wedding, uh, it almost looked like a drum festival because like every drummer in jazz was there. Jack DeJohnette was there, Terry Gully was there, Tony Reedus was there, Lewis Nash, Carl Allen. Like every drummer friend I had was at the wedding because that's the most important instrument, and particularly in a big band. The whole band has to sit on top of us. You know, so as long as our chemistry is good, um, everyone else you put in that band has to really be able to play the parts the way that you want them played. And sometimes I don't individually pick each member of the big band. Sometimes you leave that up to the section leader. For example, I mean, sure, I know two alto saxophone players, two tenor saxophone players, and a baritone saxophone player that I can call, but will they work well together as a section? I will leave that up to the section leader. So, I'll go to Steve Wilson and say, hey, who do you suggest in putting this saxophone section together? So um, that's a different type of chemistry than what it is in a small group. The big band is like I had actually started writing an essay about this, but it's almost like it's a microcosm of kind of what our world is, like what our society is. Like there is a leader that sets a tone and sets rules, but everyone gets to express themselves inside of that vision. Everybody has a say, but even some might disagree with the path or the direction of the band. You still have to make music, you know. And the way you do that is to be selfless, because you realize that the band is greater than the sum of its parts.
That's a great explanation, and I think we need to now add writer onto your list of many monikers. But it really is a nice description of what I would like to hope we can become,
Right.
and a positive utopia of sorts, or maybe just hopefully we all get along in day by day. Um,
Yeah. Let's start there, right?
yes, exactly. Now you also had you've had several quartets. I had the first quartet was in 1994 when you recorded "Get Into It" with uh, oh, help me out here.
My first band was with Tim Warfield. Yeah, I had Tim Warfield, Anthony Wanzi, and either Greg Hutchinson or Carl Allen on drums.
So that was before you recorded "Get Into It."
I was right after I recorded Getting to It.
Uh,
Yeah, when Getting to It was released in 1995, that's the band that I took out on the road to support the album.
Now later on, you had another quartet, which I believe is called New John.
That's my current quartet. Yeah, I've had that. I've been working with that group now since 2015.
And now it's with the saxophonist Marcus Strickland, trumpeter Josh Evans, and drummer Nasheed Waits.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I think your most recent CD was 2018.
No, my most recent recording was last year. The big band recording called
I'm sorry, your most recent with the quartet.
with the quartet. Yes, well, that's the only one with that quartet.
Oh, I see.
And we're going to be recording another one in December. So I'm excited about that.
Fantastic. Well,
Yep.
definitely need to help you promote that for sure.
Cool. I appreciate it.
So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your big band, and then we'll segue over to you as an educator.
Okay.
So we have already talked a bit about your big band, but you formulated this when you um, is this when you were commissioned by Wynton Marsalis?
Yes.
So this is when you wrote for the Jazz at Lincoln Center. I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah. I had I guess somewhere in my high school years, uh, I became interested in learning how to write, arrange, and orchestrate for big bands. Um, there were a couple of records I would listen to, and I started to transcribe all of the horn parts. And I just was really curious of, why that note? Why did the trombone play here? Oh, this time the tenor sax played on the top instead of the trumpet. Um, so I just studied all of these people's writing, like Wayne Shorter, Cedar Walton, Oliver Nelson. It's a big inspiration to me. Quincy Jones, McCoy Tyner. And so I started just kind of randomly practicing and writing all of these arrangements. Um, and then Winton asked if I would be interested in writing something for. Actually, he didn't ask me if I was interested. He told me to write something for the big band, and the theme of the concert was songs of New York. So every song performed on the concert that night was about New York City. So I called my piece "Blues in an Alphabet City," and it went down pretty okay. It was a good performance. Uh, Winton really enjoyed the piece. I've since expanded the piece because I think I've gotten a little better, just a bit, since 1995. But a little after that, I became a annual clinician at the Mancini Institute, which at that time was at UCLA. They had a big summer program, jazz, concert music, symphony orchestra, composition classes, all kinds of stuff. And the late great television and film composer Jack Elliott was the director and founder of the Mancini Institute, and Justin DeChocho, very well known and celebrated jazz educator, ran the big band. And so I would come out there every summer, and both Justin and Jack say, "Hey, you need to write something for the big band. You know, the big band could always use some more repertoire." And so the both of them really started to push me into writing more for big band. And I started spending a lot of time around, uh, well, as much as I could, Maria Schneider. Uh, I would nag the heck out of Jimmy Heath and John Clayton, of course. Anybody who wrote for big band, I would do my best to just pick their brain. And next thing I knew, I had enough material to make a recording, which I did in 2011.
Now, I noted in 2000, is this when you formed your first big band formally?
Well, that wasn't no. I just put together a band for one concert. But I guess the band that I have now, that became a band officially in 2010, I believe.
You mentioned Justin DeChocho. I know that name. Was he also a resident of New Jersey?
I don't think so. I think he's always been a New York guy. He was the jazz director at LaGuardia High School in New York for many, many years, and then went up to the Manhattan School of Music. Ran the Manhattan School of Music for many years. He's retired now, but great man.
Now, I also have, we might as well talk about composition, then we'll go to educator, because I'm fascinated with the fact that you were told by Wynton Marsalis to write this, and you did, and rose to the occasion. I found a wonderful interview with you where you said composing is like fishing.
Yeah.
You're waiting around until a melody bites, and I love that. I'm going to now put poetic writer into your monikers because you have a wonderful way with words, and I think you need to pursue this.
uh,
Now,
uh,
I understand too that you um, wrote a song for Macaulay Tyner's Illuminations album,
mm-hmm,
and it was called West Philly Tone Poem.
that's
So there
right.
we go with more poetry here. But I would love you to tell the story of how you were inspired to write what you did based on what you thought others would.
Well, I still don't feel like I feel like I'm an adequate composer. I'm a good composer. I'm about a C plus level composer. Um, I have a lot of mental blocks I have to get through when I'm writing, and I know what I need to do that. I just haven't developed the discipline to do that, and I know I need to. I was just saying to Melissa just a couple of nights ago, uh, I've actually been doing a lot of writing because I have some commissions that I've been working on right now. I actually have 3 commissions I'm working on. So I am writing a lot, but um, when you're around someone like Chick Corea, someone who I had a chance to work with for more than 25 years, somebody like Pat Metheny, somebody like Wayne Shorter, they just churn out classics like all the time, and instead of being inspiring, it was intimidating for me. I remember when Chick Corea asked me, like we were about to go on one of our trio tours. He said, Christian, I'm tired of playing all of my music. Why don't you write some music for the trio? I went, no, man, I'm not writing any music for Chick Corea. You kidding? He's like, no, stop that, man. No, write. I've heard you write. So um, I had, you know, this whole mental block of like, Chick Corea is going to be playing something that I wrote. This better be good. So like I'm putting all this pressure on myself as opposed to just letting it flow. Um, so I will say I'm getting a little better at that. What I was saying to Melissa the other night is that most of a few of the songs that I wrote on Getting To It, my first album, um, I wrote a lot of those songs when I was still in high school because I didn't know anything then. I had a fresh palette. Um, I was just writing for the fun of it. And I didn't have any worries of what if the song sounds too much like something Wayne Shorter wrote? What if this sounds too much like something Cedar Walton or McCoy Tyner wrote? So I didn't have those thoughts, blocking my creativity back then. But the more I started to learn, um, yeah, I think in many cases I let knowledge sort of block my creative flow, and um, in a pinch, wine can fix that.
I think the wine companies will be very happy to hear that on all the vineyards.
Yeah, a little wine always takes those walls down pretty quickly.
I do want to add here, first of all, C plus seems an unfair grade to give yourself, and so I refuse to accept that.
Uh,
Secondly, I am a writer. My degree's in writing. I have got nothing published. However, I love the aspect of writing as a creativity outlet. And Stephen King wrote a wonderful book called On Writing, which is his biography with also about how to write in about 100 pages. And I learned more from this than I did from my entire 4 year
really,
education. And what he said is the thing that blocks us the most in all of our writing is we are self editing as we're writing. And if
right,
you turn off that self editor to actually allow the creativity and the creation to happen, get it out, just let it
right.
flow, and then you go back, you
Go
put it in
back and
a
edit it.
drawer, and then you take it out 6 months later and you work it on it again with fresh eyes. And but he said the most lethal thing to anyone who is creative is that self editor.
Right,
And I think it is exactly what you're describing, is to turn that off, and then you let creativity reign.
right, right. It's that's something. I guess it's akin to something I heard Wayne Shorter, who he's my biggest. I mean, I think he's everyone's biggest hero when it comes to modern composing in jazz. But he did an album called High Life in the mid '90s where he took one of his old songs called Children of the Night and completely like expanded the song. Like he took the DNA of that song and gave it new clothes, a new home, a new hairdo. It knew everything. It was. I don't want to say it was unrecognizable, but it was. He reworked that song magically, and he also did that to one of his songs called Angola, another one called Orbits. And someone asked him, what made you sort of go back and change these songs? And he says, well, compositions are no less living and breathing than we are. So if we're changing, why can't the composition change? Go back and change something, you know. I thought that's very simple and full of wisdom.
I've been fortunate to see musicians, pop as well as jazz, where they'll take a song and it's something that everyone's familiar with, and they'll
Right.
do it in a completely different genre. They'll make a pop song into a reggae song, or make it
Yes.
a bossa nova, or do it in a totally different way, or a different time
Time
signature.
signature.
And I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
find that fascinating that that can be part of the creative process, and it's creating something new.
Yes, exactly. Sting did a radical reworking of Roxanne, which was almost sort of like, if you know the original Police version, that kind of real hard driving, flipped over reggae beat, and then you hear this sort of sweet tango reworking of it. It kind of throws you for a loop, but I think it's magical. And then it goes into like this jazz swing section in the middle, and I always have to give kudos to a big a big rock and roll star who takes those sort of artistic chances.
And I think it gets a new audience for that, for whoever's performing, and opens them up to new fans, which
Right.
is always valuable. Now,
Yes.
I want to talk to you about one of your compositions that you wrote in 2008 called The Movement, and then you actually revisited it and called it The Movement Revisited, a musical portrait of four icons in 2018. And I noted that you will be performing it live on November 11th at New Jersey Performing Arts Center. And I'd like to hear more about how this came to be. It's such an important piece that I think that you wrote, and so timely in 2008 and in 2018, and even more timely now.
Well, thank you. I first composed that piece in 1998. I got a commission from the Portland, Maine Art Society uh, for some Black History Month programming that they were doing. And I decided that I would take four people who I admired, those four people being Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and Martin Luther King Jr., and write music to their words. The biggest challenge, of course, was finding like what words to pick because it was a challenge, but it was a fun challenge because there's no shortage of Martin Luther King quotes. And, I mean, the man was so prolific in his short lifetime. Um, you could get any book of Martin Luther King quotes or speeches, close your eyes and put your finger on the page, and you got a great quote, right? A meaningful quote. Um, Same thing. Well, now the exact opposite was the case with Rosa Parks because I had a very tough time finding quotes of hers, even in her own book, you know, um, because she was just so selfless, you know. Um, but I found, I did some exhaustive research and I found some wonderful, wonderful quotes, mostly from her book. Um, Specifically with Malcolm X, I wanted to find some material from the last year of his life because Malcolm X, his whole life changed when he visited the holy city of Mecca in 1964, and he became an Orthodox Muslim. And he now realized that um, the world was a much bigger place than just what was going on in America. And um, his wisdom to me was so profound after he visited Mecca. I specifically wanted to use as much of his words from that last year of his life than from before. And with Muhammad Ali, most people know Muhammad Ali's more silly quotes, more boxing relevant quotes. Um, but you talk about a man who was, like Malcolm X, full of wisdom, and Muhammad Ali had a much longer life than King or Malcolm X, and up until his death, his wisdom just got deeper and deeper and deeper. And I was trying to find some really profound Ali quotes that didn't have anything to do with boxing. I wanted to find something that was really addressing his social and political views. There was no shortage of that either, but I wanted to find something that would complement what I chose from Rosa Parks, King, and Malcolm X. And so we played the piece in 1998 and didn't play it again until 2008. And I rewrote it for big band at that point in 2008. The first time it was just a small group and a choir. And in 2008, I rewrote it for a big band and a choir. Um, of course, later that year, Barack Obama was elected president. And so I had been booked to play the movement revisited in Detroit. And so the director of the festival asked, would you be interested in expanding the piece to include Obama? I said, well, you know, considering the man hasn't really even been sworn in yet, I'm not sure I want to include him in something like this, but I will include the feeling of what happened the night he was elected, because that was sort of to me, that was sort of the apotheosis of all that happened, but like all that civil rights struggle that happened so someone like Barack Obama could be elected, you know. And so the final movement of this piece is called Apotheosis, November 4th, 2008. And I use parts of Obama's victory speech.
What will you be performing on November 11th?
That the movement revisited in its entirety.
And that's with the big band and the full choir,
That's with
correct?
the big band and the full choir. Yep.
Now, I was able to find some clips of it online, and there's obviously a conductor
Yes.
because of two large, very, very large groups of the choir and the band, and you're the bassist playing. And I was wondering if you wish you were the conductor.
Yes. There have often been times where when I play in my big band or I'm doing a movement revisited, and I think to myself, oh man, how am I going to play and conduct this next part simultaneously? So then that's when I start divvying responsibilities to the section leader and sax section leader, but also specifically with the movement revisited, J.D. Steele is the conductor of the choir. He's been my foil in this piece from the very beginning because he's magical working with voices. So I've never had to worry about any choir being prepared to sing when we do this piece.
That brings me to another question I had: is do you sing yourself?
Uh, um, I try not to in public. I did win a karaoke contest in Ypsilanti, Michigan once.
I think we need to put you and Pete McGinnis in a singing competition. And
Oh, he can actually do it.
I think also we need to add the term now title of researcher. You're giving this librarian a run for her money here. So you're really guiding your hands into all these different pots, and I'm very amazed that you have that interest in it. It's wonderful to see.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
So let's go talk a little bit about educators. So you were a distinguished artist in residence at William Patterson University. For how long were you there?
I was just there for 1 year. I remember, I think it was 2014, maybe. Uh, Dave Dempsey called me on like August 21st and said, Christian, and we have a major emergency. I said, what's the emergency? He said, we need a director of jazz studies. I said, well, man, I'm filled to the brim, man. I can't put anything. He's like, please, just do it for 1 year. Just that's it. We'll work around your schedule. Anything we can work out. Like Dave, man, I don't want to leave you hanging, but man, I just, I got gigs this fall and I'm going to be out. It's like, just please, just do it as much as you can. So I was only the director for jazz studies for 1 year. Um,
Was this the interim year after Mulgrew Miller passed
yes,
away
that's
before Bill
correct.
Charlap came on board?
Yes, that's correct. Yep. And so I enjoyed every moment of it. I met some great people there, and Dave is just the greatest guy in the world. And I love Willie P. They've always been kind to. I mean, they were great to both Melissa and myself long before I became, the director for jazz studies that 1 year. So yeah, my hats are always off to Willie P.
I've been here at the Wayne Public Library for 17 years, and I've been trying for many of those years to have this collaboration between William Patterson and the Wayne Public Library as a natural.
Yeah,
And with the pandemic, it actually opened up for me to do this virtual programming. And we're already planning that once the pandemic is over and we're open to being able to have live performances, this can be a site for the students to perform, which is
yes.
such an important part of their education.
Got it. That's right. You got the more gigs, the better. Got to be in some professional situations.
Now, you're also is the artistic director of Jazz House Kids that
Yes,
your wife Melissa Walker founded,
yes.
and that was in 2010,
2002 when she started.
2002. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
yeah. That's okay.
Now,
Yeah,
that's an incredible program that you have in Montclair. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
sure. Well, I'll actually bring you to the present and then backtrack. Jazz House Kids also produces the Montclair Jazz Festival. So the Montclair Jazz Festival and Jazz House Kids is it's all in the same pot. Um, but yes, Melissa got called in 2002 to do a kids workshop that was being put on by WBGO 88.3. And Melissa said she was very nervous because, when you do a master class for kids, that's the toughest crowd on the planet. We're talking like elementary school kids, 4, 5, 6 years, 6 year olds, and probably the last thing they want to hear about is jazz, right? So Melissa goes and does this master class, and she's really nervous. The kids fell in love with her. She fell in love with them, and as fate would have it, as is usually the case, anytime the government needs to make some sort of budget cuts, it's always the arts programs that go first. So slowly, actually, maybe not so slowly, a lot of public schools in Newark started cutting their music programs and all around Essex County. So Melissa smartly decided that, hey, if these schools are going to start cutting their music programs, how are they going to learn about this music? These young people can't have the arts and jazz taken out of their class, their schools, and we complain about these young people don't know anything about jazz. Let's be proactive. And so she started Jazz House Kids for that very reason. And some of those schools that actually wound up losing their programs, they called Melissa to sort of be in school, to bring. We would create a program and then we would take it to a school, So that's how Jazz House started in the beginning. We have since, expanded to having students from all around New Jersey and Pennsylvania. We've had international students for our summer program. We started this jazz festival, and I just I'm very, very proud of what we've been able to create with Jazz House Kids.
What are the ages of the students that you teach? Is there a cutoff and a beginning age?
We've had students as young as 4 years old in our program. But generally the earliest the youngest students we have are usually start around 8 and through high school.
So to
So
about
so 8 to
18 then.
18. Yep.
Now I have from the website of the Jazz House. I'm just going to read this because it's succinct and it says everything I want to share. Our weekly instrumental and vocal classes for students of all levels are set up as ensembles so that students not only learn to play their instruments, solo and improvise, but also collaborate with other musicians. Their instructors are some of the best professional jazz musicians in the tri-state area. I wanted to be a student.
Come on.
I hate to
We
tell
do
you,
have an adult we have an adult band.
uh-oh.
I got to tell you that's probably one of my favorite bands out of all of the programs that we have.
I think my musical ability is about on par with your singing ability, as you put it. So
In that case, that means you sound a little better when you drink wine.
I refuse to answer that question.
You plead the fifth, huh?
Yes.
I got you.
Now, I understand that some of the graduates of your program have gone on to create Chica Power, the group.
Well, Melissa started Chica Power actually, and what happened was we had a young girl in our group at that time. Her name is Zoe Abadia, and Zoe just kind of in passing said to Melissa one day, she said, "How come there aren't more girls into jazz? Why can't we have more girls in this program?" And Melissa just like went, "Say no more. I'm going to make this happen." And she created Chica Power, and the following year, um, we the girls who were in our program, it went up 200%.
That's fantastic. It makes me very happy to hear.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just sometimes things don't happen because no one makes them happen. And that was one thing we all we needed was some young person to make that observation, and it was like, you're absolutely right. Boom, let's make it. And that's been I would have to say that might be our flagship program.
And speaking of a strong female musician and bassist is Esperanza Spalding, who
Yes,
I believe you've also played with.
that's my buddy. Yeah,
She's
Esperanza's
incredible.
fantastic. Yes, she is. Oh, there's a whole lot of bad ladies out there playing bass. India Owens, who plays with John Batiste group on Stephen Colbert's show. Linda Mahan O, who's been playing with Pat Metheny for the last couple of years. Oh man, it's wonderful to know that it's balancing. It's we still have a long way to go, but it's way better than it was.
And I wanted to mention too that the Chica Power All Stars opened for Dave Stryker at an earlier Montclair Jazz Festival concert. I believe it was in August. And I like the fact that you had your concerts spread out over actually several months. I believe from July up through this month.
Oh yes, we have. Well, we've had all of our throughout July and August. We had we had some events all in downtown Montclair. We had everyone from Dave Stryker. We had uh, oh, what's the name of the group? Oh man, I'm having a brain freeze here. Irwin Hall and his organ group. Um, Gosh, we've had some amazing groups. Oh, Ingrid Jensen came and played. Um, I did a DJ set that was wonderful. Everybody came out and had a great time. Um, Coco Mama was the name of the group, the Cuban group. Uh, Myra Casales, her that's her group that she put together. Um, and then we have our big event on September the 25th. Right in
I
down.
have the notation here that yes, on the 23rd, I'm
Yes,
sorry, allow me to interject here. On the 23rd, you have Blue and Green Cocktails and Concert in a Garden, and
yes,
that's on Thursday, September 23rd from 6 to 10 p.m. And then the Downtown Jamboree is the 25th, the Saturday, is from 1 p.m. through 9 p.m.
that's right.
And that's the grand finale. And I believe that the website is just montclairjazzfestival.org, and you can get information. And are tickets needed for this?
Not for the 25th. They're needed on the 23rd, but not the 25th.
So one of the other questions I wanted to ask you is, well, I have several more, so I'm hoping you have more time because, and then we'll try to wrap it up.
Okay.
You had mentioned about being DJ Brother Mister. How did that come about?
Uh, Same year as I became interim director at William Patterson. I played a gig in New Orleans, and it was a it was a birthday celebration for DJ Soul Sister, who is probably one of the, if not the most celebrated and beloved disc jockey in all of New Orleans. Um, she had a big all-star birthday bash at Tipitina's famous club in New Orleans, and it was a big James Brown theme night. So they put together this all-star James Brown band that I was in, and DJ Soul Sister did a set before we played, and I was standing on the side of the stage watching her, and she was uh, she was old school in the sense that all she had was two turntables and records. Like no digital pads, no digital anything, just two turntables and records. And she had that place going crazy. And I was sitting on the side of the stage like I haven't seen this probably since I was in high school, like a DJ just using the turntables. Like no tricks, no mixing, no scratching, none of that stuff. Just straight up knowing where to place the beats, you know. And it inspired me so much that night. I thought I can do that. So I came home thinking that I was going to start a side hustle as a DJ. And my first DJ gig was absolutely horrible. It was so bad, I almost don't want to talk about it. But I will say that thank goodness it wasn't in New York. Because had this happened in New York, I would have been blacklisted from every DJ club in New York City.
I guess
Um,
having wine didn't help, did it?
no, no, that was something wine could not fix that night. But as they say, you really grow from making mistakes. You know, that's where the growth comes from. So after that, after that massacre in Cleveland, uh, I figured it all out, and then I had a regular gig at a club in Brooklyn called Spike Hill. It was in Williamsburg, and I DJ'd there until the club closed, and been doing DJ gigs every now and then ever since.
And you're doing a record as opposed to CD, and I'm curious if it's the records behind you.
Yes, yeah, I do a mixture of vinyl, digital, and I also play. So I play along with a lot of the stuff that I spin.
Because you don't have enough balls in the air, you need to throw in playing as well.
Yeah, I know, I know. I'll tell you what though, I had a gig, I had a DJ gig at this place in Harlem called the Shrine, and they gave me I think it was the 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. slot, and I did that twice, and that's all I could take. I mean, I was getting home like when the sun was coming up, and I was just like, no, I can't do this, man. You know, and plus, you know, when you do a DJ gig, I'm going to change up my format pretty soon because most of the time with DJ gigs, I schlep way more stuff than I ever have being just a bass player. You know, because like with the DJ gig, you got to bring your own table, you got to bring your own blanket for the table. You got to bring your mixer, you got to bring your turntables, you got to bring your albums, and in my case, I got to bring all that plus my electric bass and my amplifier. And so, like you know, you in the computer stand, and
You
you
do
know, so
realize you could hire some young kid to do all that, right?
well, even then, you got to wait for them. Like that's like it's so much stuff to break down. I just remember thinking like, I got to change this up soon. This is too much.
And speaking of basses, I had wanted to mention earlier, I believe Ray Brown gave you his bass.
Well, he didn't give it to me. I bought it from his wife after Ray passed away. When Ray passed, he owned three bases, and his wife Cecilia, who's still with us, she's amazing. She's 94 now. Um, and still wearing high heels. She is bad. I love her. Um, she she got in touch with John Clayton and me and said, well, we got to work something out so you two can get these bases. So I took a base that I had been using for a long time. I sold it and used that money to buy a raised base from
Is
Cecilia.
that the one you use now?
I have 3 acoustic basses. Uh, I try to use all of them equally. Um, but
What's the
yes,
difference between them?
I mean there's a lot of differences. I mean, they're like people. They all have different personalities. Uh, a little different in size, a little different in sound, a little different in region where they were built. But they all do serve the function of the bass.
Well, they all sing to you, right?
That's right. That's right.
So earlier this year, when you part of the New Jersey PAC or NJ PAC virtual concerts and programming you did, you had done one, and then you had done one which was a conversation with Bernard Purdy and Chuck Rainey. And I'm a huge fan of the Purdy Shuffle. I love Home at Last from Steely Dan, and actually a young saxophonist named Nick Stefanacci, who I'm interviewing on October 13th. He's a local Wayne resident and
Okay.
teacher, and he's coming out with his 8th album. But he also recorded with Bernard Purdy, and I'm just curious what I unfortunately was unable to participate in that program, but I was wondering how it went and what those guys are like.
That was one of the that was so amazing being able to speak with the two of them. I mean, that what a historic rhythm section. All of the records that they played on together, and not just the popular ones. I mean, they've played on hundreds of recordings together that a lot of people are not even aware of. So the history between the two of them is very, very deep. And they also are both two of the nicest men you ever want to meet. And they have so much personality, and they're just um they love music, they love people, they are acutely aware of what they've contributed to music. And so just to ask them a question and just stand back, get out of the way, and let them talk, that was a big thrill. It's up on YouTube. You can see it anytime you want to.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm curious too, what I know that you are also a big fan of funk, and are you going to be playing more funk, or is there a way to have it incorporated in your jazz or do separately?
Oh,
What do you
I'm
think?
always, there's always going to be a little funk somewhere. Um, I mean, I don't have any outright funk gigs coming up. I mean, the last one was probably my last DJ set, my last Brother Mister set. Uh, but I don't have any. Yeah, I don't think I have anything on the books for anything overtly funky this year. But be on the lookout. The funk's always lurking around the corner.
I will be there. I promise you. I wanted to mention that there's a chat message. In fact, I think it's from someone who was at William Patterson's master's program while you were
Oh,
there,
look at that.
Herman Sanchez, and he wrote, connecting with the passing of the great Chick Corea, I was able to see a video about a gig in Spain where you had to play a bass with just 3 strings. Could you tell us a little bit more about it? And always, as always, a huge fan and former student of yours,
That's my
aka
man.
Brother Sanchez.
Yes. Good to see your words there, my man. Um, I mean, what can I say about Chick Corea? I was just very fortunate, very honored to have been around him so much over the course of 26 years. I worked with him on and off in various groups. Uh, and a lot of those groups where I worked with Chick, Roy Haynes played drums. So it was just like legend on top of legend. And in many of those cases also, Kenny Garrett would be playing alto saxophone. So I mean, being around Chick Corea is one thing, but then to multiply that with Roy Haynes and Kenny Garrett, uh, I'm a very fortunate person, you know. But Chick was just the always open, just always open. He's very much a people person, always willing to share anything he could with you. Uh, he answered any and every question anybody wanted to ask him. Just the kindest man, the kind of person you would hope someone that great would be, you know. And I realize people listen, there's no rule that says everyone has to be nice, everyone has to be open, everyone has to be giving. They don't. You could be whoever you are, you know. But when you meet somebody like Chick Corea, uh, it's a relief, you know. And I was very fortunate to be around him and learn from him and play with him for such a long stretch of time. As for that video, um, when my string broke, I was traveling with, I have, like I said, I have a number of bases, but one of these bases uh, is the bass I usually take on the road. Um, my spare set of strings, like an idiot, were in one of my other bass cases, you know. So when I got to Europe, I realized that, I was like, I don't have any spare strings, but I mean, how often do you break a bass string? I should be all right. I haven't broken a bass string in like 15 years. Of course, it happened that tour, right? Now, the funniest part was um, uh, that string broke like at the beginning of the first song. So I pretty much played the whole set with three strings. And when that happened, my first thought was, oh, all right. Uh, I remember breaking a string once on a gig with Pat Metheny, but at least it happened right before the song was over, so I had time to change it while Pat spoke to the audience, you know. But this time I didn't have that, and I thought, man, I can't believe my spare strings are in my other bass case, so I just had to grind it out, you know. I had to start reshifting and thinking on the fly, and I have to say, as frustrating as that was, it was almost countered by the fact that Chick was so impressed. Chick was like, I have never seen that. And he was like pointing to his road manager. He's like, did you see that, man? He played the whole set with three strings. The dude was just shifting like didn't even bother him. I was like, no, Chick, I'm really bothered. I'm just trying to hide it from everybody.
It's such a great story.
He's like, man, you didn't even flinch. I said, well, I mean, what good is flinching? I got to play the gig.
I do want to say that the description that you had given of Chick Corea could very much and should and will apply to you. I've heard so many people speak and say the same thing of you, that you're gracious, you're open, you're encouraging, you gather people around you and you let them shine and you encourage them to find what their inner voice is. And I think that that is a remarkable thing. And your C plus is an A plus in my book.
Oh, well, you're very kind. Thank you very, very much.
I have one last question for you, and
Okay,
then we'll wrap it up. And I appreciate your staying later tonight. I've enjoyed this immensely.
no
Um,
problem.
there was a article that I read from August 2017, and you were asked, "Is there anyone you haven't played with?" And you enthusiastically yelled out,
Gladys Knight.
"Gladys Knight." Exactly.
That's
Have you
right.
played with her yet?
No, but it's going to happen. Uh, just because I'm going to will it to happen. Gladys Knight and Dolly Parton are the two ladies on my bucket list. You know, and Mary J. Blige is a distant third. Now I've played with Mary before, but it was like really quick. But Dolly and Gladys, those are the two on my bucket list.
If I could do anything to make it happen, I would, but I don't think I have any say. I have one last thing to add in. My sister, who is also participating, had reminded me that Justin DeChocho is our other sister's drum instructor through our youth in Ridgewood at Victor's House of Music, which is no longer.
Wow, no kidding.
I knew the name.
So Justin maybe is a Jersey guy. I didn't know that. I've always known him as a New Yorker.
It's actually where John Pizzarelli also took lessons from his uncles, and so we were in the neighbors of John Pizzarelli, and we all went to Ridgewood for our music lessons. And I play a very bad piano and an even worse saxophone. So from what you're saying, it sounds like I just need a different model, and maybe that'll sync to me.
Well, you mentioned John Pizzarelli. I love that guy too. He's my former neighbor. We lived a block from each other when I lived in Manhattan.
I was very fortunate to interview him in March of this year, and he's a wonderful man who got his Grammy, was delivered actually this past week, and I'm thrilled for him.
I got mine yesterday. Finally came.
I'm sorry, you know what?
Like
I
6
forgot
months
to
late.
mention your 7 Grammys. I know that you have a special place where you keep all your 7 Grammys from an article I read. Congratulations, and I'm sorry I didn't get to that earlier.
That's not important.
It's
we
really
covered
wonderful.
the important stuff.
It's fantastic that you're getting the accolades. And one of the other things I was reading about is in your band, you like the fact that you allow your players to play what moves them. And if they're feeling like playing something out there, if that's what they're feeling, to go with it. If they want to play Sesame Street, I think you said in the article, they can play that as long as it all somehow comes together. And I
As
thought
long as
that
it
was
fits.
right, as long as it fits.
Yeah. I mean, if it's random and arbitrary, then I might have to go like, But I mean, if you think what you're feeling will actually help the music as a whole, then go for it. And if you try it and it doesn't work, hopefully you'll have sense enough to know it doesn't work and you won't do that the next time.
But it takes a good leader, like you said, of a musical group to be able to recognize that and foster that and have that environment where one is feeling relaxed enough to be able to be creative and not have any blocks, wondering, as you said, with your composition. Same thing can happen with playing, and I think you make a great environment for all your musicians and your groups, and for yourself. And I think you're just great, and thank you.
Oh, you're very kind. It was a pleasure speaking with you this evening.
Thank you so much. And so I just want to repeat the Montclair Jazz Festival is going to be next on Thursday, the 23rd. It's from 6 to 10. And then the finale is on September 25th, a Saturday from 1 to 9. And actually the following the following Sunday, the 26th of September is when the William Patterson Jazz Room Series is beginning. And it'll go through November. And so everybody get online, get your tickets, and we have some wonderful music right here in Wayne. We have it right here in Montclair, which is just also very close to us. We don't have to pay any bridges or tolls or go through the tunnel. Right. We don't have to pay for anything extravagant with parking. So just everybody get out there and enjoy. And thank you very much, Christian McBride. This has been a really pleasurable interview with you. Thank you.
I look forward to meeting you in person one of these days.
Me as well. Thank you. And I'll bring the wine.
Yeah, do that. We'll sing a duet.
All right. If only if your wife is nowhere near, because it might hurt her ears. Thank you very much. You have a wonderful night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.